Hello, hello, Hidden Hermit here. How are you? How are you dealing with the vibes at the moment? So anyway, I would like to say a little piece about the current Saturn Pluto conjunction, which is happening right now at 22 degrees of Capricorn. I say right now, so Saturn and Pluto have joined together just under a week ago at 22 degrees of Capricorn. But from where I'm sitting, today is the 11th of January. On the 12th of January, so tomorrow, from my point of view, the conjunction becomes exact. So it's like the pinnacle of the vibe, if you like, and it is an important. It's an important marker of a very big cycle, and a very important cycle indeed. So why am I even bothering talking about this? Because astrologers have been banging on about this for years, and rightly so, because it is quite a pivotal thing that is happening. But what can I add to the conversation? Well, to be honest, not a great deal. Not there are going to be no major insights in this video. But I did want to make a couple of points. So first of all, I just wanted to, not many people have been talking about this. In fact, I haven't heard anybody talk about this because I can't read everything. I can't watch all the videos. But I wanted to make the point that this is a once in a lifetime occurrence. Now, it could be argued that the conjunction itself, because it is a roughly 40-year cycle, you're going to experience a couple of these in your lifetime. So the last time this happened was in November 1982 at 27 degrees Libra, and that really gave the vibe of the cycle from 1982 up until now. And that was 37 years ago, 38 years ago. And if you think about the sign of Libra and the idea of diplomacy and harmony, and on the flip side of polarization and a little bit of snobbery, I don't think that's an unfair comment. So that's been some of the vibes that have been marking the last 37 years. The next one is going to be in June 1953 at 1953, no, we're not going to go back in time. It's going to be in June 2053 at 14 degrees of Pisces, which is going to be feel very, very different. And the point I'm trying to make is, if you were born, say, for example, in January 1983, you'd be 37 this month. And anybody born since then and sadly did not make it, say they passed on for whatever reason, they would not have experienced this conjunction at all. Indeed, if you were born in January 1983 or beyond, come June 2053, you're going to be 70 years old. So this could, for a lot of people, this is going to be the only time that this conjunction happens. So that's one thing that I wanted to point out. The second thing that I wanted to point out is an actual once-in-a-lifetime experience for all of us, because obviously it happened in an air sign last time, and it's happening in a water sign next time. So this is going to be the only time it's going to happen in an earth sign. Now, this conjunction happens in earth signs all the time, but I'd like to go back to the last time it happened in Capricorn, which was all the way back in January of 1518. Now, I don't remember 1518 that well, but there are some interesting things to point out and to note about that time period. A mere 66 days prior to the conjunction, when the conjunction went exact, some bloke called Martin Luther pinned a list of 96 kind of ideas, his thesis of indulgences, to a church in Germany, which sparked the Reformation. And just to give you a really basic idea of what the Reformation was, it was when people actually started to question the Catholic Church dominance over society and state, and for want of a better word, they revolted. Eventually, it would end up to kick off the Enlightenment, and then the Enlightenment obviously led to the Industrial Revolution, and then World Wars, and now. So that's just giving you an idea of the importance of this conjunction in the sign of Capricorn. Now, just for a laugh, I thought I'd go back in time 66 days from tomorrow, back on the 7th of November 2019 to see if anything major happened on that date, just for a laugh. And well, sadly not. Nothing of great importance from our point of view, from where we're sitting at the moment, happened on the 7th of November. However, there are a lot of things happening in the month of November, notably protests. So in the countries of Iraq, Hong Kong, Colombia and Bolivia, there were all sorts of crazy protests that were happening, and every single one of them ended up being violent to some degree, if you like. Where I'm sitting in early 2020, the protests and the craziness in Hong Kong has yet to abate. Bolivia, the protests led to the president resigning. Iraq's always been a mess and has been for quite a while, which is, unfortunate. But the idea of protest is very much marked in November. And in addition to that, and there are some non-violent protests happening in the world. Extinction Rebellion in the UK and indeed globally have come to a bit of prominence. And eventually, the vibe since then, you've had a UK election which was quite profound, as well as a certain US president facing impeachment charges. So there's been a lot of this idea, and this is the prevalent theory about this conjunction in Capricorn, this idea of questioning, challenging and opposing power. Now, it's not that I don't agree with that vibe, but there are other facets to that I think need to be addressed, if you like. Now, as you know, I am a tarot reader, so if we put this conjunction in the language of tarot, you have Saturn represented by the world and Pluto represented by judgment in the sign of Capricorn, which is represented by the devil. So just using these pictorial archetypes, you get an idea of the energy surrounding this conjunction and what it might mean for the world, if you like. Now, the world does indeed signify, or Saturn in the world signifies grand cycles, the ending of something and the beginning of something new, and this very much is the kick-starting of a new kind of energy, I would suspect. Pluto and judgment calls to arms that idea. I mean, you have this very Christian pictorial image of the rapture, of the dead being raised from the ground and ascending, if you like, or descending, depending on how naughty they were. And of course, the devil in tarot kind of talks to us about things of the matter, being chained to things that are unhealthy for us, addiction, materialism, things that are right around us. So that's interesting. Now, the other thing that I'd like to note about this actual conjunction is when it does go exact, it's going to be joined by Mercury at 22 degrees Capricorn, which I think we have already seen manifested because so many people are talking about it. Mercury moves on, as it is wont to do, quite swiftly, but the day after, on the 13th of January, the Sun joins 22 degrees Capricorn, shining a light on this. And again, those energies have been manifesting for the last year or so, and they will be prevalent in the next coming year. This idea that we're all talking about this idea that this light has been shone on this kick-starting of this cycle. So yeah, crazy stuff. Now, going back to this idea of a lot of astrologers out there are suggesting that this is a time to confront those that are in power, confront the systems that have been in place. But I would like to mention the idea that this conjunction is happening in Capricorn. So you're going to find that people in power are going to be very keen and eager to hold on to that power. And that's a very complicated and abstract idea to deal with. But let me move on to my next point, which is the point of it's a great cycle. Now, this has been drummed into me by how can I put this? An astrologer, sage astrologer, the indomitable Anne Whitaker. She loves her cycles and the idea of cycles. And this is indeed the beginning of a new cycle. And this is going to be the vibe of the new cycle. Now, as we go through to 2053, when it happens again in Pisces, we're going to see some aspects to this conjunction at 22 degrees Capricorn in 2020, and you'll see these energies get remanifested and reinforced over the course of the years. So, for example, and Saturn really is the marker, I believe, because Saturn is going to, move away from Pluto and try and get back to Pluto in 2053. So when Saturn makes the aspects to 22 degrees Capricorn, then that's when you're going to relive these energies, reassess, see them opposed or strengthened. So, for example, I think the first one is at 22 degrees Aries in May of 2027. That's when Saturn will square this. And so you're going to see these energies get very strengthened, and there's going to be a lot of rubbing of the wrong way, if you like. Things may soften in July of 2029 when it's at 22 degrees Taurus, when it's trining the aspect. Now the pinnacle, the apex of the aspect is going to come in June 2034 at 22 degrees Cancer, and that's where we're really going to understand what this cycle really means for all of us, and how it's been birthed and how it's growing in the world. And that's when we're really going to know what it really all means, I would argue. It's fascinating stuff. Yes, and you'll get to the second square at 22 degrees Libra in September of 2041. So this is not a flash in the pan thing. I saw a comment on a Facebook group that said, oh, okay, come January the 14th, this aspect will be over and done with. Well, that's not true, because it is a marker of a much greater cycle, and these energies we're going to be living side by side for them for the duration of that cycle. So it doesn't just switch on and switch off once the aspect goes direct. It is a continuous thing, and we're going to see these things manifested. You can track how these cycles work throughout history, and it's not just the Saturn-Pluto cycle. The Saturn-Jupiter cycle is also, sorry, the Jupiter-Saturn cycle is also very important. The Uranus cycle in an individual's life is very profound, but of course we're talking about Saturn-Pluto at the moment. So what other points did I want to make? So yeah, coming on to this idea that it is in Capricorn, that some people think it's going to oppose the power, and then there's that opposing idea of people in power going to be doing their best to cling on to it. This is, of course, going to bring a sense of conflict, and conflict is quite prevalent in the world at the moment, and we've been building up to this aspect. If I was to just digress and go back to the idea of the Reformation, we look back in history and we say, well, that was clearly a good thing, and yet it caused a lot of conflict, a great deal of conflict. And indeed, you see conflict all around the world at the moment, not just those protests that I've mentioned earlier, but, around, there have been attacks in Syria. There is a lot of tension between the United States and Iran, Mexico and their cartel problems. Mali has been embittered. On today, in my home country of Scotland, there is another march for Scottish independence. Again, that sort of cause of conflict. And even when you look to popular culture, the last Star Wars film has just been released, and to very conflicting views. And I appreciate that on this large scale thing, it doesn't feel that important. But I have noted that the last time that we had this Pluto-Saturn conjunction in 1983 was 1982. Was a year before the third film in the original trilogy was released, The Return of the Jedi. And when the last cycle was in opposition, that was when the second film in the second trilogy was released, Attack of the Clones. So it doesn't bear any importance, perhaps not, but I just thought it was interesting to note. So what else can I say? Yeah, so you've got this idea. It's a big idea. It's not just going to go away straight away. It's a once in a lifetime aspect, and 2020 astrologically has been huge, and it's going to be really tricky, really strange, starting with the lunar eclipse that happened yesterday on the 11th of January. The lunar eclipse was indeed in Cancer, loosely opposing this conjunction, but I think that was the real sort of kick-off of this aspect and the energies. And as we go through 2020, more is going to be happening profoundly. Mars will be making a 6-month transit through its home sign of Aries. Ares, the god of war. Mars, the Roman god of war. And in Tarot, the Tower with the Emperor. Powerful stuff. And moving on to almost 11 months from now, the next cycle. And it's important that we have these huge cycles happening in this 1 year. Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter and Saturn are going to meet at 0 degrees Aquarius on the 21st of December 2020. So in the language of tarot, the Wheel of Fortune, the world, 2 lots of cycles amongst the vibe of the star. It's crazy stuff. It's an interesting time to be alive. I'm very grateful, as you two should be. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to say about this. It's a good time to think about those big cycles, the big things in life. You know, how it relates to you and what house this is happening in is going to be vital. It's going to really, again, bring those vibes to the fore. So, for example, if it's in your 2nd house, you're going to be thinking about your own money, how you make it, how you hold on to it. If it's going to be in the 12th house, then, well, that's really tricky. You're going to be thinking about all those energies that might be trying to oppose you in a sense. But yes, I'm not going to go through all the houses because that would get quite dull from my point of view. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. So enjoy this, make notes about how you feel and what you see and what is going on. And yeah, come the Saturn opposition in June 2034, you can take stock and assess and evaluate what it actually all means. Anyway, thanks for watching. Really enjoyed having you here. I am the Hidden Hermit. I think it's time for a nice soothing cup of tea.